So that was one of the
Fabrics
things.
and not fabrics. I feel like
Actually-
we can move back to fabrics.
To what?
To fabrics, sitting on fabrics.
Oh.
You know, like the nice chairs and the bench cushions.
Well, I feel like the majority of the population that's coming to church and everything, I mean, I'm obviously not going to ask, but I'm going to guess most of them got a shot.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Those of you who are attending church in person, if you're out there,
Have you gotten your shot?
are you comfortable? Would you feel safe sitting on a pew cushion,
And I think that's
knowing
something
that we can't really
that
spray
we-
it down? But
that we'll have to talk about at Worship and Arts, because there's a couple other things that we're going to
yeah,
go through. We're going to talk about maybe putting communion back into the worship service where it belongs.
Well, appropriate. Yeah,
But
you know what I mean.
Yeah, not where it
we know what
belongs, but in a place that is more appropriate in the service,
Right.
as opposed to at the end and walking out. Because I think
Catholic style,
one of the
way out
struggles
the door.
On the way out the
you know,
door.
one of the struggles I'm having, and I allude to some of that in my sermon this Sunday, is the fact that it's hard for me to interact with people, especially after a communion service, because
Everybody's gone.
everybody's gone, and all of a sudden
and you're like, well, that was fun.
yeah,
What everybody think?
glad to talk
Good?
to people.
Nothing?
Yeah,
All right.
right. You know, and
We
you know,
sometimes forget the pastor needs feedback.
I would love feedback.
Positive feedback.
Well, I appreciate critical
And-
feedback,
okay,
and
critical
you know,
feedback too.
because that helps me grow.
Yeah.
You know, and helps me to understand what everybody, not what everybody's looking for, because you can't please
Or
everybody.
where people are coming from,
But
too.
right,
Yeah.
exactly, where people are coming from. And I had a conversation with Susan Hayes yesterday, and she has some questions that people or somebody proposed for where is the church and where does it go forward from here.
Mm-hmm.
So we may be looking at those in some of our gathered at the table stuff.
Did y'all hear that, too?
I did,
Okay,
yeah.
just checking.
But
I
we
don't
didn't,
know.
we didn't
Maybe it's the
lock it
roof.
before we
Who
came
knows?
back in.
I didn't lock the door. Oh, well, it might be it's the wind.
It's probably Ed.
It's the wind.
Ed's doing roof checks this week.
So announcements.
thorough.
Before we get into anything too heavy, we got some
Yeah.
announcements. Yeah.
So announcements, we're baptizing Liam McCluskey this Sunday, so that's excellent. Yeah, we're looking forward to that.
What's the time frame on crying? Is it going to be a crier, no crier?
Just give
you
the
know,
baby back. Just give the
well,
baby back.
I was,
The last one you had a crier, and I was like, just give it back to his mama.
but so in some
He's
circles,
like, it's the Lord's now.
in some circles, crying is a good thing. It's a
Okay, well, in this Lutheran circle, we want the crying babies back to their mamas.
so we will see.
Right.
You know.
Weigh in. Should we let the baby cry, or we just give it back
Right.
to their mom?
Yeah.
Don't pinch the baby. That's
Don't
I'm
pinch
not
the
gonna-
baby. Give the baby back.
My gosh.
Everybody is a little different, though. I mean, after a couple of other people's baptisms, I'm just like, wow,
Yeah, Jack did cool with me. Jack was, when
Yeah.
we did his, he was awesome. And
But
you know.
Pastor Karen paraded the baby around the congregation. I was like, what is happening right
well,
now?
some churches do that,
Yeah.
and maybe
Yeah.
that's a way for the congregation to be like, oh yeah, but
five.
we're-
COVID.
COVID,
Yep.
So that won't be happening. But
no,
interesting, all interesting.
right. And then after that, we have our town hall meeting,
Right.
which is going to start probably around 10:30ish,
Mm-hmm.
and you can check in on Facebook. I'll be the moderator for that.
Oh,
So
no.
if you have questions, you'll ask them of me, and then we'll ask Sheila, who's going to be running the meeting, to pose that out or find an answer. And then if folks in the congregation here ask a question, I'll be repeating it to those folks who are online so they can.
So you said on Facebook. So let me clarify.
Oh no, yeah, you're right, not Facebook. On Zoom.
On Zoom.
Yeah.
So members got a weekly email that has the Zoom
Correct.
details for them to join in the meeting, and then you'll be moderating.
Yep, on Zoom.
Facebook Live will not see the craziness
It
that
will
is
not.
him moderating a town hall meeting.
Go figure that.
And just remember, if we have any questions that we can't answer at the town hall, we'll answer them at the actual meeting on the 2nd.
Right,
Mhm.
May
And that-
2nd.
May 2nd.
That's the point of that, is to get all the discussions out ahead of time and questions, so that when we go on May 2nd, there's very little discussion, or
Well,
as
we
little
know
as
what,
as
we
little
know
as
what
we
the
need.
questions are, and
Right, and then we can get on with the vote and
Move forward.
move forward.
Right,
the highlights of that are the lighting in the nave,
yep.
the audio in the nave,
And
which
then-
I hope you all can hear us. There's 4 people on right now.
And safety,
Let us know.
safety upgrades
And then
for the
safety and
church.
security amendment to the approved
Yeah, because we had already
motion
approved
from the
um,
congregational meeting.
expenditure for the safety upgrades. The bid for that came in a little bit higher, so we just need the congregation to approve that higher expenditure.
Yep, or we have other ways to alter it if we need to, so.
Yeah, hopefully not.
So come with all
um,
the questions on Sunday.
Yep, come with your questions. Then, May 15th, there's nothing in between here and May 15th.
Well, I
right?
mean, I don't know if you want any more help on Sunday.
That would be helpful, because I know that Betsy and I are like, yeah, because Belinda is not going to be joining us. So if you're able to help us put together the stuff for the soup kitchen, that'll be going on down in the social hall, and we really would like some help. Even if you can only stay for 15 or 20 minutes, that's enough.
You can
just
pack
to-
a lot of meals in 15 or 20 minutes. I think we put together like 140 in the summer in like 40 minutes. And I was
Right.
like,
Yep.
whoa, you guys are speedy. So
Yeah, so we have two opportunities to do that. One's at 11, which if we get it all
Right
done
after
at 11,
service.
then we don't have to worry about putting stuff together at 3 o'clock, and we can just be here and transport the stuff to
you're
the,
still going to have to put the hot stuff in the clamshell at 3.
true. We still
I
have-
gave him notes. They have
She
notes.
gave me notes, but I was
It's gonna
looking
be
at something
fine.
else.
But if he could have some more help, especially if you've gone with me to the soup kitchen before, we have a couple newbies, and it's a skeleton crew. They only let 10 people in at a time if you're worried about safety. You can be apart from the public, per se.
Right.
So I think it will be, anyway, if you can help out,
That would be appreciated.
yeah, let us know.
Yep.
That'll be less stress for them. I will
Right.
be in California, so I will be 3 hours behind,
We'll probably be calling her anyway.
and we're gonna try.
I
There,
know.
yeah, who knows?
Belinda needs her vacation.
Belinda needs a vacation. I need to actually get there. There's so many restrictions with traveling. I'm at this point where I'm like, what? Why was I deciding to travel now?
Just buy all the stuff there. Don't take anything with you.
It's not that. It's the restrictions of the testing and how and uploading, and you
Right.
have to have your QR code. And then I found out where we're staying doesn't accept people who quarantine. So if I don't have my QR code on my phone, I will be stuck in California and not being able to
Belinda
go
will be
to
living on a beach in
Hawaii.
California.
Yeah, or just buy a tent. We're gonna join one of those tent cities, and I'll report back. Well, I'll report live on
Ministry
Facebook.
from California.
Ministry from California. I don't even know anybody in California. I do, so I picked the right. Okay, all right.
So we have that, and then we have,
And then we can skip forward to.
we can skip forward to the Strawberry Festival,
Yes,
which will be on May 15th from 10 to
10
2?
to 2
10 to 2.
for the
we'll-
festival itself, and then setup starts at 8
for the
for the festival, and then the yard sale is going to be happening. Will be
Right.
starting at 8, but we're
Right.
going to set up the day before.
right.
A lot of stuff.
Lot of stuff.
There's a lot of stuff
Come
for the
get
yard
it.
sale. Yeah.
Yeah. But the epistle will be coming out at the end of next week with lots of details, and there are some details on the website now, including signing up to
Help.
The sign up for volunteering is on there, as well as the sign up for items. Usually we have, a little card that you take with the strawberry, and it's cute and reminds you to bake your yellow cake. But we don't have that this year, so click on the website
Yep. And
donate a
that's-
cake.
And that's part of what stewardship is being a part of our stuff.
Baking.
And then, our
about cake.
evangelism in the
It's
community.
about cake.
Because that's what we're trying to really do, is be a part of the community here. So allowing us to kind of do this modified strawberry festival will hopefully draw folks in. And the more people we have here from the church helps to, show what kind of community we have.
And maybe highlight what that community outreach is, because that is different than we've ever done before. We usually sell food and the strawberry shortcakes, but this year we're doing
So
something
this year we're
different.
more focusing on reaching out to people in our community. So as opposed to this being a fundraiser, this is more of a,
Friend raiser.
a friend-raiser. Exactly.
Oh,
Look at
that's
that.
adorable.
Copyright.
Wow.
A friend raiser.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's what we're trying to do. So
Nice.
please come out and make a friend.
Yeah. So we will still be selling strawberry shortcakes, though.
Yep, but you come,
And bake sales.
we're going to be able to, you're going to be able to get a hot dog and some chips and a bottle of water just because we
Just
want you to
because.
be our friend.
We're bribing you with
We're
food.
going to buy friends.
We're gonna buy
influence
friends
people.
with hot dogs. Yeah.
And then the 21st, right? 21st
Yes.
is the blood drive, and that's
Mm-hmm.
open for you to sign up for now. So
And you
That
can again
goes-
click on that on the website or on the Facebook page. There's links both places.
and it goes from 10 till 4.
Yep.
So I think that's all. Do you have any announcements more?
I've got a sort of future announcement.
Okay.
We're going to meet and talk about German dinner because we're looking at doing a modified version of that. And
Cool.
depending on how it works out, we may have one of the things that people have asked for a lot of years, possibly. So
Which is what?
I don't know
You-
if I want to
you
give it
don't-
away.
Yeah, okay. It's a teaser. It's a
It's
teaser.
one of those things that they put on the comment cards. Ooh, can you make this? And we're
Ah.
like, that takes forever to make, and it's a lot of
And
work. But it may happen.
It
this
may
year.
happen.
All right. That's
Best
exciting.
guess in the comments of what he's talking about. I have no idea. I don't read the comment cards.
True. They're almost always good, but there's usually one thing that runs through pretty
That's everybody's
regularly. Yep.
everybody's looking for. Probably not any of the beer then for the drive-through.
Probably not. Who knows? Maybe for the staff.
But another bribe.
Well, you can drive through and get a daiquiri at different places. So
In Maryland?
Not in Maryland, but
We're still going to be here in the Ville, right?
Right.
Everybody bring your 7-Eleven cup.
bring your Slurpee
yeah,
cup.
no,
we're
I don't
not gonna
think.
do that.
All
I
right.
don't think that's
so,
good.
what are we talking about today?
Peace.
So,
Do your thing.
Do your thing.
so this
so
peace
you don't forget it.
be with you.
Right, we're supposed to say, and also.
And
And
also with
you.
you.
It's like to hang loose.
Oh. This way or this way?
It's like this.
This way.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Nice. We learned something.
Yeah.
Can you do it?
Probably not.
So you
Does it
go.
have to be right-handed?
So no, you just do this.
The peace be with you.
Peace be with you. Yep. Cool. So hopefully, we teach an old dog new tricks every now and again, and sometimes we learn.
Sometime.
So one of there are a couple. There's the social statement itself is what 20 pages, 24 pages long.
Yep.
But there was again, like we had with the education social statement, there was an article published in Lutheran Women Today, which is a tremendous synopsis of what the whole social statement is about. And the first thing that really jumped out at me was the second paragraph of that article was, it says that the church's vocation is peacemaking. God's final peace, the peace of God's eternal reign, serves as the basis of this calling, which has two main expressions: proclaiming the gospel of God's final peace and working for earthly peace, that is, relationships among and with nations that are just, harmonious, and free from war.
I don't think I thought about when we talked, when we said we were going to do peace, I wasn't thinking about God's final peace, so I like that it started with that.
Yeah, and we've talked about this over and over and over again about how does that come about, and I think I mentioned it in my sermon that I like to think that there's a way that we can make this happen, that we can be able to sit together and talk together and make things work. And I realize that that's a naive opinion, but I think as far as what we do here in church is that we promote that as much as possible. That if you have an issue, or if you have a disagreement or whatever, you have those peaceful conversations. You know, you have the amicableness, the ability to sit there and listen to what someone else is saying, and you don't necessarily have to agree, but you can hear what has to be said, and maybe at some point you'll learn something.
And that sets the example for how people act or interact
Right.
outside the church.
I mean, if we can start it as a small microcosm here at St. Paul's, and it permeates into the Ville, and then into Frederick County, then into the state of Maryland, and out, who knows what could happen. And again, to me, that's my naivete.
I was about to say, that's a pretty big
Just because it's
dream here.
unlikely doesn't mean it's not worth trying.
Not worth
Right.
trying. Absolutely right.
All right.
So
where do we
Russ,
go?
you had some. You said you had some pretty good thoughts about this.
I'm like second page,
Oh,
you know.
rock and roll.
We're
Oh,
still
first,
first page.
I still got a lot on the first page.
Oh, I know.
too.
I think we have the same things highlighted. so-
Probably.
I didn't highlight anything, so
Belinda, yeah, you're.
Thinking about vacation. She's already gone.
I'm already checked
She's been
out.
rocking and rolling on something else. So.
I have.
I think, you know, how does us suffering with this sin, how does that affect us? But then how does the Holy Spirit come into our hearts? And that's really what we look for. And that affects us by healing our broken relationship with God. You know, and that's really what this social statement gets to, is that the lack of peace or the conflict or whatever is really sin against God in the world. And how do we, you know, we know that we sin every day, that we seek forgiveness and we seek repentance, which repentance again is not that dirty word that a lot of people think. It's really a rebirth or a cleansing or a change in your heart to turn around to what is what would make us exemplify Christ in the world. And that's really what.
The one part I did, and I think you have the same part highlighted, but it's in the second column. Jesus taught love for one's enemies. He reached out to the oppressed, downtrodden, and rejected of the earth, and he prayed for his enemies while himself being rejected on the cross. And I was just reading in my devotion this morning, I was reading in Acts, and Stephen, as he was being stoned, was doing the same
Right.
thing and praying for the forgiveness of the people who were
So
stoning
think
him. And that's just seems maybe above my ability to do on my own.
Yeah, I think that's a very powerful witness. I mean, you look at both Stephen and you look at Christ on the cross, and the agony, the pain, the torment, the just what must have been going through what would have been going through my head.
Right.
Certainly wasn't what was going through their heads.
Right. And how being closer to God is going to make that more possible.
And
you know, if I had that connection and that trust in that relationship with God, then I assume that I could be closer and be more understanding of my enemy's actions and offer forgiveness rather than lashing out, which is what the first instinct is to do.
Right, and you know, being the person that can have that conversation and understand that someone's angst or ire towards you, it may be something rooted in their person that you don't really know. And until you have that conversation and until you understand where that person is coming from,
And they
then-
might not even know. I mean,
and that's right.
there's so much deep-seated hate or mistrust that's come through generations.
Mm-hmm.
Again, sin, I think. If
Right.
you can look at it like that, it's a little bit easier to tolerate versus just going, oh my gosh, I can't even with you, and dismissing them.
Right.
And that's one of those things where trying to understand the people who are around you, getting a different perspective,
Yeah.
getting out of your comfort zone some, can help with that. I mean, if it's somebody's deep-seated things that they don't share, you don't know about, you can't
Right.
really do anything about that if you don't know, but at least it'll kind of give you more of an open mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, that goes back to, what Luther's plan was for the catechism. Was that this kind of behavior, this kind of activity needs to begin at home. We need to, understand that other people have different opinions, and, I can yell at the TV all night long, but still, I need to take a look back and say, okay, now can I really see where that point of view is coming from? And sometimes you won't, and I think that's okay.
But you're at least open to questioning what their motivation is.
Right.
Instead
Or what
of,
your perspective is.
or what their perspective
if you're stuck
is.
in your perspective.
Right.
And it may just take someone saying, well, this is really where I'm coming from. And you go, oh.
And you can go, I don't agree with that, and I hate that idea, but I understand it.
Well, I think, maybe going to
Maybe
the
hate's
point
a
of
little
where you
strong,
say
but
hate.
You understand what I
But
mean.
I think
Yeah, but I think people
you
do
can
go
say-
straight to that, in their disagreeing.
I think you can say, okay, I hear where you're coming from. I don't believe in that, or I
Here's
think
where I'm coming from.
this is where I'm coming from, and then is there a way that we can meet in the middle? And if there is, then we have peace, and we've not conquered that sin, but we've overcome that sin for that day, for that time, where it allows us to move forward and hopefully build relationship. And if we're working to overcome sin, it can't be done by ourselves. We have to have the power of the Holy Spirit within us to be able to feel that and move forward in doing it. But if we don't, then we're not. We're perpetuating the sin.
All right, and I think a lot of it, especially when you get onto the larger area, that's where you're talking about countries and war and things like that, it gets to the point of self-interest. Everybody's looking for their own self-interest, where you don't have to run over somebody else to lift yourself up or whatever. There's a place where you can both, a rising tide raises all boats, one of those situations where you don't necessarily have to destroy someone else to get what you want.
Right.
There's mutual avenues a lot of times where everybody can get, what they want.
Yeah, and part of that is celebrating the peace that God has given us. If we're able to celebrate God's peace, and that's what we proclaim in the world or our community or our church, then, like you said, Russ, we're, going to try to gather more friends by doing that, and maybe gather our enemies too. Who knows? Check.
Moving on.
Moving on. Page 2.
So one of the things that this statement,
Peacemaking presence.
is telling us that our governments should vigorously pursue peace. I mean, and that's absolutely true. I mean, that's what we have to advocate for. That's what we need to talk. That's what we need to lift up so that we're heard at the higher levels of government, so that we're not just going to fix things by dropping a bomb or invading somebody or doing whatever.
Yeah, I liked the vigorously pursue, that part right after that, what was said. And I'm assuming it comes straight from the statement, because it's quoted, consent over compulsion nonviolence over violence, diplomacy over military, and deterrence over war.
Right.
I like
Right. They've
all
got
of those.
this section right here. There's some pretty deep concepts that there's a lot to them that are in the actual social statement that are pretty good. I wrote down a couple of them here that I thought were interesting. Where it says the church has a presence for peace that disturbs, reconciles, serves, and deliberates. And I was like, disturbs. So according to that, means refusing to be silent, instead speaking truth, resisting idols that lead to false security, injustice, and war, and calls for repentance. And this also talks about making your country the idol, putting your country above God in that situation, where I could see where we do that around here occasionally, you know, as the United States. But where the church is concerned, we're supposed to speak up when we see things that aren't right. You know, we're not supposed to sit back. So I thought that was interesting, that we're supposed to disturb.
We're supposed to disturb.
Yeah. And
You don't usually see that with the word peace. You want it to be quiet, but that kind of reminds me of, like, you know, Jesus flipping the tables.
Stirring it up, yeah.
Yeah.
Right. I lost my thought there for a minute.
Sorry, my bad.
That's okay.
And then when you get to the part that Belinda was just talking about the government should vigorously pursue less coercive measures and things, it also says that as the Lutheran Church, we affirm that governments may legitimately employ measures as law enforcement, police protection, provisions for the common defense, and resistance to aggression. So they acknowledge that government has a part in sort of overseeing safety.
Right.
Yeah. Or the responsibility, because I feel like it's a responsibility then to protect against aggression, but also
And I think that's
as a last violence as a last
right.
resort kind of
And-
thing.
Well, it still says that, you know, we trust God first,
Right.
but we trust God, but we do have the government to protect us physically here, you know.
Right,
where we live.
and I see that, you know, when there are demonstrations out there, when people are calling, you know, like we do, you know, we've seen regularly people calling out for justice and whatnot. But the latter part of that is that in some of those instances, that violence has come as a result of those demonstrations or whatever, and that's exactly what this is talking against. It's, you know, can we come together? And yes, you could be angry about police brutality. You could be angry against whatever the cause is. But again, you have to handle it in a positive manner, positive attitude. You know,
I think constructive.
constructive. That's a
Yeah.
better word. Yeah.
All right, and that's the next part after they say all this government stuff, government, can do these things. And it also says, for the sake of a greater good, citizens may need to oppose a prevailing understanding or practice of national identity, interest, or even resist an oppressive government. But it doesn't say to do that in violence,
Right.
obviously.
Right. And I mean, we certainly saw that played out on January 6th, where people were demonstrating and it started out okay, but then it turned to violence. And that to me is just not how we get things done, you know, and it's terrible. You know, yeah, go out and have your voice. I have no problem with that. But when you start breaking stuff, hitting people with things, or you're not living out what this statement is telling us. It's, you know, we need to talk about things. And okay, yeah, we can shout across lines or whatever, but the point at which we start, you know, destroying property or hurting people or doing any kind of violence is really where everything breaks down and just goes to heck in a handbasket.
Yeah, when you stop seeing the people, you know, you're just seeing, you know, a wall of shields, or you're just seeing a demonstrator with a sign, and you stop seeing them as individuals, as
Right.
people, and you're not listening, and they're not listening to you. There's no
Right.
you know, talk it out, but you have to be willing to hear the opposing viewpoint to find a common ground, I think.
Right, and I think, you know, especially with the trial that played out this past week, you know, there's a lot of people shouting victory, victory, victory. Well, it's not a victory. A man lost his life. Another man is going to spend the rest of his life in jail. And what has been accomplished? Nothing. You know, we still can't come together and have that conversation that says, how do we fix this? How do we make this right? How can we have conversation with you so that this doesn't happen again? How do we learn about why this was done or why that was done? It's not a victory. To me, it's a loss. It really is. It's just, sometimes I get upset about those things.
Well, hopefully everybody gets upset about it and it does something positive.
And that's exactly what we need to do. You know, are there reforms that need to be made? Sure, probably. You know, are there changes that need to be made on other ends of the thing? Sure, absolutely. How do we make that work? That's the million-dollar question.
And that's a situation where both groups would definitely gain from it,
Absolutely.
you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I mean, yeah. Well, we won't talk about it. Diane wanted to know what page we're on. We're on the summary on page 2.
Well,
I'm not
page
sure which paragraph we're on
39.
at this point. Are we on a paragraph?
I think we're getting into the middle of, well, the bottom of the first paragraph and second
Yeah.
page.
Okay, got that.
We're into the war part.
Yeah,
War.
and I found that a little weird, was that we begin with a strong presumption against war. Absolutely, I think anybody would agree with that, you know, that we certainly don't want to go to war. But then it says support for and participation in a war to restore peace is a tragic concession to a sinful world. So,
Well, I think you can get into an example of World War II, where you have, you know, a group that's murdering people by the hundreds of thousands.
The exceptional circumstance.
Right. It's an exceptional circumstance where you're not going to talk them out of what they're doing. And you run out of options, and the only thing to do is defend, you know, the people who can't defend themselves.
Right.
and it kind of goes to the next paragraph or next sentence where it says, the principles for deciding about war include right intention, justifiable cause, legitimate authority, last resort, declaration of war aims, proportionality, and reasonable chance for success. And I think the problem that we have with that is who's making those decisions, who's determining what is right, what is a justifiable end to this. You know, is it because I need to secure oil, or I need to do this or that or the
Well,
other
then that
thing?
wouldn't fit one of the parameters.
Yeah, I was
I'm
about to
with
say,
you.
I feel
Right.
like the declaration, that was, you know, under all of that, and then it was the declaration of war aims that I
Yep.
was like, yeah, you need to have, like, you know, for
A
instance,
plan.
World War II was to remove from power people who were
Yeah, the Axis powers,
victimizing,
right.
you know, others. Whereas the endless war that's been going on in the Middle East, I do believe it seems, I don't know if that's exactly what they call it, but it seems to have been going on since the early 90s, and really, I mean,
1991.
91. What's the war aim here? Where was the goal? What, you know,
Right.
did we miss it?
We
Did
got
we
rid of
did we
Saddam
move
Hussein,
it?
we got rid of Osama bin Laden. Is that really what our goal was? Or
Yeah, like where's our goal here?
right.
Right. And also, you know, it says in this, the plans afterwards are to help your defeated enemy rebuild.
Rebuild.
So
Right.
it's not just to go in and
And I
that-
think
and
we attempted that in Iraq.
Well, we did, but that's what happened in Germany after the First World War. We didn't do that. We didn't help them rebuild. We weren't a part of their reconstruction. We weren't a part of, for lack of a better term, ministering to the conquered peoples, and that's what perpetuated World War II. So,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. I wasn't following you there. I was like, how did World War II cause World War II? But I follow you now.
There we go.
Carry on, carry on.
Thank you. I can just picture Belinda doing this.
I just eventually want to get there. I don't even know. Anyway,
But it also goes in
peace.
to,
I need inner peace.
you know, the importance of Christian pacifism too, where, you know,
And that's what always like reminds me of the Amish people. And I think we maybe have talked about that
Yeah.
before, but you know, their reaction to violence perpetrated on them is so,
Loving.
you know, yeah,
It's
it's like my
above where-
goal.
It's above where I would, you know, if, and we take the Amish school shooting, we
Right.
talked about that, and I can't remember, I think there was 23 children that were killed that day, and immediately the Amish community there embraced the shooter and embraced the shooter's family, and that's something that I would struggle with.
Yes.
I would think the majority of us would.
Yeah. Anyway, that's our goal.
And I think what you said, Belinda, about war, you know, that one sentence really highlights what it is that the principles for post-war conduct, include showing mercy to the defeated and assisting them to rebuild. That's,
I don't know if I said that or Russ said that. One
Either
of us
way.
said that.
either way.
Somebody said it.
We're a group.
We're a group.
But they also go into, we must continue the perennial discussion in the Church Universal about whether Christian love and discipleship prohibit participation in war in all circumstance or whether they may be permitted in some circumstances. So, like all these statements, they're still open.
A
We're still
continual
talking. These
struggle.
aren't made in stone, never to be
Mhm.
changed. These need to be revisited and gone over and see. Because, I mean, if you look at some of these were done back in the 90s,
Yeah.
Yeah, this
And
was
then you look at
95.
2013 or 14, whenever they looked at it, lots of things have changed in them, in
Mhm.
some of these, you know.
Absolutely.
So shall we hit these
Hit
bullet
the points?
So it's
Yep.
12:32, so if we
Did
could.
you have particular ones that you liked on that list there, Belinda?
No?
No?
I mean, they're all kind of feel to me like beyond what I can affect. Did that make sense? Like it was like, how am I supposed to affect international peace with my day-to-day life?
Well, you know, by voting for people who promote those values.
Yeah, but that's not even day to day. I mean, that's one day.
But I think the first one is something that we can all do. You know,
Yeah.
foster a dynamic vision of difference in unity. And that's what we've been talking about. Being able to come together, whether you agree or disagree, whether you hate or love, whatever, that you're able to have those conversations to figure out a way to be able to move forward together.
Oh, and I heard in that it's okay to be different, but you can be united in being different. I'm hearing all kinds of crazy things this week, as my family will attest, so who knows if I'm... Anyway, and I can do promote respect for human rights. I can, that's a doable one for me. I can, but again, it's like, you know, the atrocities of the Civil War on the continent of Africa. I just like, I feel helpless against those kinds of
And I think that's the challenge.
wars.
I mean, you look at the one where it says, advocate participatory and accountable political structures within nations. I think that's very difficult, especially when nations, and not just people, have different ideologies as to what their role is in their community. I think that's very difficult.
Right, but I think on the whole, this is speaking to, you know, put people in charge that you believe will push these values for our country, you know? So you may not be able to directly, you know, jump on a plane, run over, meet up with Mr. Putin and have a conversation and fix some stuff, but
Yeah.
maybe you can elect somebody who has got
Who
that
will.
skill and can get on a plane and go over there and say,
Right.
you know, settle
Diane
down.
said the golden rule should just be, it's easy, just golden rule. That would be
Whoever
great
has
if
the
everybody
gold rules,
followed
is
that.
that the one?
No,
The
that's
one who has
not
all
the
gold
golden rule.
rules?
That's the wrong one. By the way, these two need a chaperone next Thursday.
Who would like to herd cats?
Who would like to herd cats? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think, again, the last one here is care for the uprooted, which I think we try to do a good job of that here.
I think we could always improve.
Absolutely. I mean, there's always room for improvement, but, and that's why we need more people involved, so feel empowered, get involved.
I was waiting for a sermon.
Yeah, coming on Sunday. I will say, though, that page 21, I think,
Yeah.
wrapped this up really nice in the last section, where it says, "We do the liturgy and we disperse, trusting that the peace of God in Christ Jesus, which surpasses all understanding, goes with us and prepares us to be peacemakers."
Right. So, you said that about sermon for this Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
So, are you going to be the hired hand? The guy that or the girl that just comes in, does what's necessary, doesn't do anything extra, and goes home, no fuss, no muss? Or are you going to be like the Good Shepherd, where you lay down your life? And laying down your life doesn't mean necessarily getting yourself killed, but it means devoting your life to what the values of Christ are. And that's really the Good Shepherd.
Oh, that's the check mark for Sunday. Okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering where we were going with that for a second. I was like, where are we going with? We haven't talked about shepherds at all today. And okay, gotcha.
So
I'll
that's-
tune in later.
Tune in later. So that's what we got for today, and I think we were talking about maybe healthcare next week, or again, I talked to Susan Hayes about some other questions that we might pose, so if I get those, maybe we'll chat about them.
So look for something next week.
Well, something.
On the Facebook page.
Yeah.
The reminders are already scheduled to post. I just have no idea what they're going to be talking about. So everybody
It could be
should
very scary
just
here.
tune in and see. Somebody keep them straight for me.
So do we have any other comments before I go to close off?
Nope, just for me to travel safe, which I hope to do.
Yes, indeed. So we'll see
Enjoy
you
yourself.
next week.
When are you going?